Good evening, everybody. This projector. Thank you, Pastor Eric, once again for the opportunity to be here and share the second session that we have about a very loaded topic that many people are involved in. As we said yesterday a couple of times, the information that you receive usually from the media, as I dare to say and challenge, you've been lied to for many, many years about what happens in Israel. And yesterday we went through a lot of stuff. We covered about almost 100 years in the story, going chronologically. And I cannot repeat all of it, just to remind you. We spoke about the condition of the land of Israel in the 19th century. We spoke about the Ottoman Empire's will to sell land to anybody who is willing to invest. We spoke about the British mandate that changed all the demographics by inviting a lot of workers from all around the area to come and work for the British, pay them less than to pay the Jews, and let them stay to become the residents of the country. And these people are believed to be today the indigenous people of the land, people that were not from Palestine, but came in seeking for better life and better jobs, and they changed the whole demographics. I would like to remind you also that whatever I'm sharing with you, do not trust what you hear from me. You go and check. I'll try to be objective. I cannot be totally objective. I'm part of the conflict, and this is only natural. Some of my comments will sound outrageous to you. Please go and check. And if you have better information, better facts, you know how to reach me. There is the opening slide over there. You see the website, and I'll be more than happy to check what you bring as facts. And sometimes we can be wrong, all right? But at least you can have a dialogue. At least you're interested, otherwise you would not be here. That's a good sign. Most people don't really care. Most people get the information from the media knowing maybe this is not all truth, but we're not going to check for ourselves. It sets a certain tone, it sings, it settles, it becomes a fact, although we don't speak about facts here, we speak about narratives. Maybe the most unpleasant outcome of every conflict, and that's where we stopped yesterday, will be refugees. And I did mention to you yesterday that once the United Nations decided that in the land called Palestine, there'll be two countries, one for the Jews and one for the Arabs. It started also the conflict for the first time openly between the Jewish militias and the Arab militias. The Arab side was losing the war, and by the time Great Britain left the country, most of the local Palestinian militias were defeated, were devastated, and then Israel was expecting the invasion of the Arab armies. They did invade, they lost the war. A state was born, the state of Israel. The Palestinian state was never born. We spoke about it yesterday. The land allocated to them was simply taken from them by the Egyptians, by the Jordanians. I'm not going to repeat all the details. And what about refugees? Because this is maybe the most important, I will say, component in the whole story. People that live in very unpleasant conditions, to say the least, for the last almost 80 years. People that many of them would not be qualified to call refugees. The term refugee has a certain meaning. It's defined by international law. It's defined by the Geneva Convention. When you are a refugee, you have some benefits, you have some privileges, and you are favored in some places. So sometimes it's amazing. People would like to have the status of refugee because the place that they live in is so poor and so devastated that becoming a refugee will simply elevate your way of life, will give you more benefits, more education. Sounds crazy. Why would anybody seek to be a refugee? And think about how poor one can be to give up his freedoms and liberties and go under the category of a refugee. But that was the case in the case of the Palestinian refugees, almost all of them. As the war started between Israel or the Jewish militias and the others, about 30,000, it's an estimate, people from, let's say, the aristocracy of the Arabs in Palestine fled. Most of them had property in Egypt and Syria. They did not want to stay, be part of the war. They simply left the country. These were not qualified to be called refugees because if you live before the hostilities begin, you're an immigrant. Never came back. And we speak about the backbone of a potential leadership of the local Arabs simply left the country, leaving behind the masses. Those people that were impoverished without any motivation, not really connected to the land, to confront the Israeli army after the state was born. And during the war, many of them fled. If you check with people today who know what the conflict is all about, and I have to say no in quotations, they will tell you that all of those were simply kicked out by the Jews. We loaded them on trucks and we sent them to Gaza, we sent them to the West Bank. Well, I'll prove to you that was not the case at all. And keep in mind, that many of those only came to Palestine recently to work for the British, and now because there is a war, they simply want to go back to their homes. They will be also called refugees. We have about 5 million people that carry the card of refugees. The title refugee ends when you find a new home, you find a new country, you are becoming a citizen. That's the end of your refugee status, with one exception in world history, the Palestinians. You can live anywhere on the planet. You can be a citizen of America, Argentina, Brazil. If you have the little card, you're still considered to be a refugee, to collect a paycheck from UNRWA every month if you want to. Now, this is crazy, because that's not what refugees are all about. And also keep in mind, 3 years earlier, Second World War was over, millions of refugees just wandered all around Europe, desperate to find a new home. Everybody found a home. Countries accommodated them. They are now the residents of Europe. End of problem. Not with the Palestinians. With the Palestinians, this thing is eternal. It will never come to an end, because they are used very cynically and tragically by the Arab countries who refuse to take them in and use them as a weapon against Israel until this very day, with the cooperation and collaboration of the UN. Because the UN makes a lot of money out of it, and countries are donating. It creates jobs and salaries to people who don't have a clue about what's going on, but they are representing the Palestinians because they run the refugee camps. The UN also wanted to do good, as always, and they have a special resolution made in 1949 that some refugees can go back home. By the way, never happened. Never in the past refugees could go back home. You left the country, that's it. We'll assist you, we'll help you. You're not going back home. You won't be compensated. It's not part of the deal. For example, 1923, between Turkey and Greece, there was an exchange of populations. About 3 million people. Exchange populations wasn't easy. It was even violent, but the problem was solved. Technically, we could have done the same here. But keep in mind the mindset. If we are going to negotiate with Israel over anything regarding refugees, that's recognizing the state. And if you recognize the state, you are defeating the purpose of Islam to destroy the Jewish state. We're not negotiating. Was anybody asking the refugees, what is it you want to do? Who cares about the refugees' will? We speak about the Arab countries embracing a certain position. We do not negotiate because it's recognizing the state of Israel. Refugees can live or die. We don't care. And we speak about millions of people that are in that condition until this very day. Please note, it says anybody who is willing to live in peace with the neighbors. That's kind of a joke. All right? The whole thing started because there was no peace between those neighbors. So now to go back and sign a document, I wanted to go back, but I want to live in peace with my neighbor, not going to happen. So that resolution was a nice attempt, wasn't happening. And by the way, no refugee in the world was treated so kindly and so openly by the UN as the Palestinian refugees. For example, if you lived in Palestine between 1946 to 1948, 2 years, that was it. You are considered a refugee. The world's category, 5 years of residence in a certain place and have a local citizenship, then you are called a refugee. For some reason, with the pressure of the Arab countries and their supporters, the UN made an exception. So this problem will never be solved. But let me ask you this, and maybe I showed you that yesterday, I don't think so. You came from Gaza to work in Tel Aviv, because the Jews opened a new harbor over there, lots of jobs, excellent conditions of life. Your family is still in Gaza, but you work in Tel Aviv for 2 years. Are you a refugee? I'm asking you. Well, technically, yes, because you were employed in Palestine for 2 years. You are considered a refugee. You have a house in Gaza. You're an Egyptian with your documents. But what you're getting from the UN in the camps is much more than you will make in Egypt. Why not become a refugee? If education is free, food is on the table, true, you can travel, you don't have any civil rights, but life is better as a refugee than it is as a free person who lives in those impoverished Arab countries. And by the way, when those people were on the way back home to Egypt, the Egyptian army stopped them in Gaza. Egypt didn't want to be flooded with hundreds of thousands of Egyptians, most of them, to come back home. That's how the Gaza Strip was born. That's how the refugee camps came to be. Egypt was obliged, basically, to let them go back home. They didn't need the masses to go back to destabilize Egypt. They simply closed the border. That's how the Gaza Strip was created. There was no Gaza Strip before 1949. You live in a town, in Bethlehem, in a village, and you go to seek work in the orchards in Jaffa, a nice Jewish farm, and you go home every 2 weeks or so. Are you a refugee? No, you're not. But now you enjoy the title because it makes you more money and a better education for your kids if you have the credit card. The refugees are a tool. The refugees are an asset, political, even financial. Nobody wants to solve the problem. And by the way, the only people that can inherit their position, it never happened before. A refugee dies, that's it. Your children are not refugees anymore, not for the Palestinians. They can inherit that position forever. So now we have the 5th generation of refugees who lack any motivation to work hard because life is quite good without working. Sounds familiar, huh? So why are we going to try very hard? But something else happened, the most important one, that the Palestinian national identity was born in the refugee camps. Because now you are not just an Egyptian going back home. Now you're somebody that was in Palestine for a while, stopped by the Egyptians, so you're not Egyptian anymore, and somebody has to tell you, who are you? Who are the people that are in those camps? Education of UNRWA, the UN, created a nation, a national spirit. You're not just an Arab, not just an Egyptian that went to seek work and got stuck by the Egyptian army. You come from Palestine, you're a Palestinian. Let's try to build that narrative of a nation that shares the same faith. And that's the faith of the Jews stealing your land. That's why you're a refugee. Will never solve the problem. Because once the problem is solved, that's it. There's no claims for Palestine. There is no Palestinian nation. You do understand this kind of cynical game that the whole world is playing. As long as people call themselves refugees, this problem will not be over. And that can go on and on and on. Well, you need to understand that because many people, when I share with them, do not get it. Most of the people, I'll show you a document in a minute, left their homes before the war started. Because once they heard that the Jews may be victorious, they were positive. The Jews are going to treat us as dhimmis, just like we treated them. They're going to persecute us. They're going to That's how we treated them. It's only natural. That's how they're going to treat us. So there was not even a mindset that not everybody behaves in such a murderous way. Most of the people left because they were positive. Once the Jews will take the area, they will treat us as we treated them. These are not refugees. These may be immigrants, but the category doesn't really work for them. And here is the Arab League. They're supposed to be the patrons. They were supposed to solve the problem. Take those people to your countries. They are Arabs, speak the same language, same mentality, same music, same food. Why not? Well, once again, we speak about a weapon. We speak about a political asset. We speak about a human tragedy. And then the UN created what is called UNRWA. And I don't want to speak much about them, but UNRWA is not the solution. UNRWA is the problem. And I wish I had enough time to go into that, because they present themselves, of course, as the people that came to help and work. In the last war, we were confirmed that some of those employees were siding with Hamas, were Hamas terrorists that were running schools in UNRWA and clinics in the camps of UNRWA. I'll show you in a few minutes how children are educated in the Gaza Strip, and you'll get the message without getting into too many details. Read the report given by an institute in Beirut, not Jerusalem, Beirut, okay? That will be their observation. 70% of people who fled from Israel left without the war even started. To be absolutely honest with you, yes, in some places we loaded Arabs on trucks and sent them 10 miles away, that's it, away from their homes. For example, the road to Jerusalem goes through a very narrow gorge. The road is one easy to block. On both sides of the road, 4 villages, every now and then throwing boulders down to the road, opened fire on Israeli vehicles. The capital was cut off. Yes, if you don't promise to stop, we'll load you on cars, we'll send you away. Highway number 1 has to be safe and open to connect Jerusalem with the country. In some places, we throw people outside their homes. So what? It's a war. We are not angels. We do have our interests as well. But you read it everywhere. Israel expelled 750,000 Palestinians, destroying 500 villages. No, that was not the case. Most of them left even before the war started. Why? There was an invitation made by the Arab countries. The mighty Arab armies are going to invade Israel. We'll throw them into the ocean within days. You may be in danger. Come to our countries, take shelter, and once we are dealing with the Jews, you'll go to take their homes, much nicer. 70% left because of the invitation. That's not refugees. Unfortunately, they lost the war. They're not coming back home. Because of the shortage of time, I can show you whole correspondence in the city of Haifa in Israel. The local mayor, a Jewish man, is asking the Arab population, stay in the city. We will live together. You're not in danger. But the president of Syria said, oh, clear the city, because we are coming, and you'll be in danger. We're going to butcher the Jews, and then you can come and take their homes. That's how Haifa's Arabs left the city. Same in Jaffa, same in Tel Aviv, same in Galilee. So to speak about refugees, not quite so. And there's just a report given by the director of UNRWA, an American man, his impression. And I'll show you another one. And then maybe the last one we'll see. That's the plan, by the way, even today. These people are going home not to live peacefully. They're going to destroy Israel. I'll have to say it once again. Never in the world it ever happened that refugees have the right of return as the exception made by the UN for the Palestinians. Why? Well, again, you have the majority in the House. You can pass any resolution. And them and the supporters have a majority in the UN. Unpleasant pictures, I'll be quick to admit, and you see that everywhere. What about Jewish refugees? Did you hear about Jewish refugees? Not really, huh? Well, let me prove to you that we had the same situation with Jews who lived in Arab countries. But these Jews were not at war against the host countries. They were loyal citizens that lived in Iraq and in Egypt and Syria, and they will be in danger because the Jews are winning and the local masses feel offended, they feel humiliated. We want to take revenge from the Jews. Well, that was the promise. All right? If the state of Israel will be proclaimed, that's what will happen to the Jews in our area. Let me remind you. The claim is always, we don't have an issue with the Jews, just with the Zionists. Well, these are not Zionists. These are Jews that live in Egypt and Syria. What's your problem? Well, we will never tolerate a Jewish state. Look at the numbers, all right? Until 1948, after 1948, speaking about ethnic cleansing, that's ethnic cleansing. Speak about apartheid, that's apartheid. And therefore, there was an amazing exchange of populations. Even the numbers are almost the same. So why don't just say to the table, you can take Jewish property left behind in Baghdad, Alexandria, Damascus, end of problem, if you want to end the problem. Nobody wants to end the problem. So many people did come. We don't call them refugees. The UN never recognized them as refugees because these are the Israelis of today. People came from the Arab countries, they are citizens, they came back home. We don't have refugees, but theoretically, they should have the same status as those who are refugees who left Israel even before the war started. You hear some bitterness in my voice. Well, the war came to an end, and now we have to deal with a new situation. Where are the Palestinians? They were supposed to have a state. Their land was stolen by the Jordanians and Egyptians. So who is a Palestinian? Well, for example, in 1921, the Grand Mufti, we mentioned yesterday, insisted that the Palestinians or the Arabs in Palestine will be called Southern Syrians. So was he a Palestinian leader, yes or no? Look at what Arafat himself said years later. Look at what King Hussein said years later. Jordan is Palestine. Palestine is Jordan. Here are some other quotes, if you wish, about who are the Palestinians, what is Palestine, is there such a body of people called the Palestinian people? And that's Arabs, not Jews and not pro-Jews. So is there a nation called Palestinians? Is there a land called Palestine? According to that, yes, it's called Jordan. And it's not my idea, it's their idea. I'll give you 2 minutes to read this one because it's critical. Okay? That's one of the leaders of the PLO. Do we need any more than this to prove that we speak about something which is a political, social creation to be used as a tool against Israel? That's not me. We speak about the high official of the PLO in 1977. Maybe it slipped off of his mouth, but it was said, officially and openly, so just to try to explain that idea. 1948 to 1967, Palestinian story is gone. Those who live in Jordan are Jordanians. They're officially annexed, they have citizenship, they are Jordanians. Those who live in Egypt live under Egyptian occupation without any rights whatsoever, zero education, zero health care. The Egyptians are building those militias of Palestinians in refugee camps and arm them to the teeth to carry on the struggle against Israel. We speak about apartheid in the worst way possible. Refugees in Lebanon, even today, 8 years later, they cannot travel, they cannot get decent education, they cannot hold an official position. That's apartheid. Same in Syria, same in Kuwait, and same in Iraq. Meanwhile, in the territories, people start getting together with the Egyptian support. We're going to try to be more organized after losing the war. 1959, an Egyptian student by the name of Arafat, is founding a cell of Palestinian students, few elite that were permitted to go and study in Cairo. And now there is an official movement that represents the Palestinians. Since the Egyptians couldn't tolerate that, he had to flee to Kuwait and lived in Kuwait until 1966 or so, 67, I'm sorry, when they came to Gaza. That's the beginning of the Palestinian nationality under a certain body of people that represent the Palestinians. Until then, nobody represented them. The Arab armies refused to accept them. If you dare to speak about your Palestinian rights in Jordan, you end up with a bullet in your head. If you dare to speak about Palestinian aspirations in Egypt, same thing will happen to you. They won't tolerate any unrest in their territory. So the Palestinian people as people are getting together in those refugee camps, and Arafat will be the first one to establish a group, and then the whole Arab world comes together because they want to use the Palestinians as a tool, we said it many times, to create the PLO, East Jerusalem, and you see the date 1964. Meanwhile, things are getting worse in the Middle East. The Arab world is humiliated. Israel had an amazing victory in 1948. They planned another round. And this time, Gamal Abdel al-Nasser will be the man behind the offensive. A sidetrack, if I may, for 2 minutes. The idea of Nasser was that Islam had failed us. Each time we fought for Islam, we were humiliated by the Christians, by the Jews. We should find another common denominator. Let's speak about Arabism. We're going to focus on our culture, on our language, on our heritage, and not on religion. It became quite popular. Did you know that Egypt and Syria were united as one country? 58 to 61, there was one country. Egypt or Syria, Syria or Egypt, doesn't really matter. Under one leadership, it was all to try to unite everybody under the title of Arabism. That's what ISIS tried to do under the title of Islam. Same idea. We are not divided to countries, nations. We are one body of people. We are Arabs. And Arabs are humiliated once again. We have to seek revenge, and we are going to throw the Jews into the ocean. And you read those statements, I'll show you some. Until 1967, the Sinai Peninsula was the buffer zone between Egypt and Israel. The president of Egypt is ordering them to move. The UN forces are there. The Egyptian army is deployed very close now to Israel's borders. And we speak about winds of war once again. I was only 10 years old, clearly remember the experience and the tension as was mounting. In my family's case, we got a letter from friends from Europe. We have place for you, come, because another Holocaust is about to begin. That was the mindset. Once again, the mighty Arab armies are going to attack the state of Israel, this time with the Soviet Union behind them. They'll surely win. Israel will cease to exist. And just read the messages. When you hear that coming from the Egyptian radio, broadcasted on BBC mainly. There was no Israeli television yet until 1968, by the way. You do understand. You have to take it very seriously, have to be prepared. That was the new atmosphere. So we speak about the Arab armies are preparing, and you do understand what kind of a message it delivered. And we decided not to wait until they will attack. We made the first move. We realized that the Egyptian Air Force is training every morning from 6:30 to 7:30 above the skies of Sinai. 7:30, they all land, they go to a breakfast, so we attacked at 7:45. They were not prepared. Within 2 hours, 400 jets were destroyed on the ground. The Egyptian Air Force was gone. So was the Jordanian, and so was the Egyptian. That was indeed an amazing victory. A small country, once again, is humiliated the Arab world. Not the Muslims now, but the whole pan-Arabism was now simply crushed by the Jewish state. And look how big Israel became almost overnight. That's how it started. In 6 days, we tripled our territory. Indeed, an amazing victory. Israel is good in winning wars and losing politically, and that's what happened here as well. I do want to show you a short video. For us Israelis, quite a moving one, will be for you as well. Liberation of Jerusalem, Temple Mount, and the Western Wall. I don't need the volume, just the video. Thank you. That's from the Mount of Olives. The commander of the 55th Airborne Brigade gives the order to attack the city. June 7th, 1967, the first time ever Jerusalem is assaulted from the east. If you've been to town, you know the topography, there was a reason for that. There was an agreement between Israel and Jordan, a gentlemanly one, not to use air force or artillery, so the main assets in the city would not be damaged. Temple Mount, Western Wall, all the churches, we kept the agreement. It cost lives, but we kept the agreement. Storming through Lion's Gate or Stephen's Gate, that's a gate. Looking for Temple Mount in the Western Wall, not knowing where to go, knocking on windows, asking people for directions. Who will open his window when the war is going on? Temple Mount. Somebody with a bazooka over there, Uzi submachine guns. They're looking for the way to the Western Wall. You've been there, many of you. Big plaza today. You see in a minute how the Western Wall used to look like until 1967. It was a Wednesday, that's a Western Wall. This was maybe the most important accomplishment of the war, very emotional, and the reporter says in the background, I'm not going to be this man, but I'm touching the Western Wall and feel the heavy weight of 2,000 years of history on my shoulders simply by able to touch the Western Wall. Chief Rabbi of the Army proclaims and reads the Shema, which is a basic prayer in Judaism. Well, an amazing victory, and I have to say that, and they will not agree, but I don't care. The best thing that happened to the Palestinians is Israel's victory in the Six-Day War. We gave them a chance once again to be a nation. Because if you dare to speak about your nation under Egypt, you won't survive for too long. If you say that in Israel, not violently, we're willing to listen. That's what democracies are all about. You think that you have some civil rights? Let's talk. Let's consider. We gave the Palestinians a chance to be a nation for the first time, something that was denied from them by the Egyptians and Jordanians and Syrians and Lebanese. And it was a mistake because we did not understand that they still have the dream that was in a way created in the refugee camps, because now there's no longer oppression of Jordan and Egypt. The Palestinians have a chance to be a nation because Israel won the war. Prime Minister Levi Eshkol makes a statement from the Knesset Parliament, June 19th, makes a proposition. We are willing to pull out from all the land we conquered, all of it, except for East Jerusalem, give it back to the Arab countries. Palestinians are not mentioned. There was no such country. And therefore, the proposition was the most generous that any Israeli prime minister will make forever. The answer was given by the Arab League, September 1st in Khartoum, Sudan. No peace, no negotiation, no recognition. What was taken in war should be reconquered in war and through rivers of blood. So we did understand that it's not going to work with the Arab countries. The UN, as always, got involved to make their own ideas and their own resolutions. It says very clearly, countries, right? The right of countries. The Palestinians are not mentioned. It speaks about Israel pulling out from territories, not the territories. You need to know that every document the UN releases is translated to 7 languages. The one in English said territories, and we said, okay, we'll work with that. The one in French said the territories. The Arab side said, well, we're going with the French this time, because it speaks about all the territories. Sound like a nuance, not important. It makes all the difference in the world. If it's from territories, you can compromise and negotiate how much of territories. If it's the territories, that's all of it. Confusion, huh? Well, again, not really. Everybody uses that in a certain way. But please tell me, what did you see Palestinians mention? Or Palestine? Not even there. And therefore, the world still does not understand, does not agree that there is such a nation, let alone rights for a land. Not even in 1967. How do we call the territories? Many people call them occupied, right? We call them liberated. That's a sentiment. The only right term to use will be disputed territories. Because this is quite a crazy situation, all right? The West Bank, for example, was offered to the Palestinians as a homeland. They refused to take it. It was taken by Jordan illegally and conquered by Israel. So whose land is it? You understand the confusion here? Because occupation has a legal definition. It's a land that was conquered from a sovereign country by another sovereign country. Yes, when you take it from Jordan, it wasn't theirs to begin with. It was given to the Palestinians. They occupied the land as well. So how do you call the land? Well, disputed is the only legal term to use. By the way, I did a study. Until 1967, nobody in the world media was calling the West Bank occupied territories. It was occupied by the Jordanians. Nobody called Gaza occupied territories. It was occupied by Egypt. Since when the world begins to call it occupied territories? When the Jews have it. Interesting, huh? So even occupation is very subjective when you think about the term that everybody uses. We call it liberated. Again, it's a sentiment, not more than that. Arafat is in Gaza. He succeeds to escape from Gaza with some of his men, and they go to Jordan. And Jordan will be now the main hub for the Palestinians. The first place to get together, not under Egyptian oppression. After the king of Jordan was defeated by the Israeli army, he's not strong enough to control the local Palestinian militias. Arafat creates a state within a state in Jordan, carries out attacks on Israel. The king of Jordan almost lost the kingdom. He's asking for help. Israel is willing to help, but that will lead to a whole civil war in the Jordanian side. When you call it a civil war, that means that the Palestinians in Jordan are considered to be Jordanians. Otherwise, it will not be a civil war, right? The world media call it a civil war between the king of Jordan and the PLO, and that ended quite poorly for the Palestinians. I'm going to run this one through with your permission. We speak about an era of international terror. Some of you may remember the early 70s, hijacking airplanes, attacking the Olympic Games in Munich. For the first time ever, terror groups are cooperating. The Japanese Red Army, the Irish IRA, the Italian Red Brigades, the German Baader-Meinhof, and the PLO. Suddenly, all of them have the same agenda, to fight the West, to fight imperialism, and who is the immediate target? The one that we have a border with, and we have a state within a state, Jordan. We speak about an era that the world had not seen until then. I have to say that. Some of you may not like to hear that. The biggest contribution of the Palestinians to the world history is hijacking airplanes, all right, and blow them up. Everybody who works for airport security today should be thankful to Arafat. The world is spending billions of dollars for airport security because of one man, one movement, the PLO. What else we could have done with all this money for the best of the human race, huh? We are spending millions. The Palestinians invented few things, and one of them is attacking airfields and air bases and attacking aircraft, etc. Let me show you a short movie, if I may. I do need the volume here, it's in English. Thank you.
While dynamite was put aboard the planes, the guerrilla guards stood over them to prevent King Hussein's troops getting too close. 15 minutes later, the commandos themselves left in a hurry. Then, just before 3 o'clock, it happened. Hassan Dalal was the only cameraman allowed to remain. We asked him how he knew when to start his camera. He said, as soon as I saw the commandos running. Dalal was only 300 yards away when the first plane, the BOAC VC-10, went up.
TWA, airplane. No people inside, all right? No people inside, just the just the airplanes. Well, that was the straw that broke the camel's
Next to
neck.
go
Am I
was
saying
the
that
Transworld
correctly?
Airlines Boeing 707.
And
Its
Hussein
death throes
understood
were
that if I
marked.
want to keep my kingdom, I better go and confront them openly. Black September, some of you may have heard the term, became to be a very militant Palestinian terror group called Black September, named after that event. Jordan almost collapsed. They did not, thanks to Israel that was helping the king. So we are good friends even today with his son. And the Palestinians had to leave the area. They were no longer welcome in Jordan. And under the pressure of Gamal Abdel Nasser, they moved to Lebanon. They made a promise, we're not going to be involved in Lebanese affairs. We just need a place to go to. Nasser died the following day, quite suddenly, as you understand, no connection to what I'm sharing with you, but the Palestinians in Lebanon will destroy the country. Everywhere these people went, they brought countries and states down to their knees. So in Lebanon, it's going to be a major problem for us Israelis because they will build a state within a state on our northern border, and we had to deal with that. Well, we spoke about that. Lebanon, all this area will be now kind of another state within a state. You see, what terror is really interested in is to find a place in a sovereign country that has international borders protected by international law, with a very weak central government, that you can do basically whatever you want. And the locals are not strong enough to stop you. That's the case in Lebanon until this very day. So the PLO now is building its bases. Terror starts immediately. Within days, they start launching Katyusha rockets into Israeli towns and communities, exchange of fire once again. And meanwhile, the whole world is kind of witnessing what the Palestinians are capable of doing. I have to try to explain the dilemma. The world is praising Israel, a small country that won an amazing victory. How can we place our agenda on the world table? Are we going to rally the streets of Paris and scream, power to the Palestinian people, give us our rights? Or maybe, if we blow up airplanes, we'll get the world's attention. What say you? What are the chances to get the world's attention, peacefully or violently? I'm sorry to say that terror sometimes wins. And sure enough, they were right. The whole world understands there is a problem that we need to deal with. And instead of fighting terror, as Israel does, the only country in the world who does, they are inviting Arafat to come to the UN General Assembly and to address the House. A side story, Arafat was always walking and carrying a pistol in his hip. Always. Now, you're not supposed to address the UN with a pistol right in your holster. He refused to leave it outside. And there was a little kind of negotiations, and the UN capitulated. So he's addressing the whole world with a little pistol here and speaks about the destruction of the Jewish state, and the House is clapping. So if you have a chance to fight terror and try to get rid of it when still young, that was a chance the world had missed, and we're dealing now with the consequences. The world was all for the Palestinians. They were invited. The world is now supporting officially amazing international terror. The government of Italy paid the PLO $5 billion over years to promise them not to operate on Italian soil. Terror sometimes wins, unfortunately. So now the whole world recognizes a group called the PLO, begins to recognize there are people called Palestinians, and the PLO representing them. Meanwhile, a few things happen. Waves of terror within Israeli borders. We speak about the Kosa Road massacre. But meanwhile, something else happens. Two countries that were enemies for years, Egypt and Israel, decide to make peace. And that's supposed to be a turning point, because Egypt, the largest Arab country, was always behind the Palestinians, always supporting the Palestinian cause, so to speak, always, for about 5 years or so. And if Egypt makes peace with Israel, the Palestinians will be left without any support. The Soviet Union will collapse in 12 years. Who is going to support the Palestinians when world powers are getting weaker and weaker? For President Sadat from Egypt, that was not the important thing. Two parties begin to negotiate from the Israeli side, the Egyptian side. It is producing a peace treaty, and that peace treaty was signed in March 26 of 1979. It looked like the beginning, the dawn of a new era. Because if Egypt is willing to recognize Israel and live in peace, that will be a breakthrough. All the Arab countries are going to join in because that's the right thing to do. And when they negotiate, Menachem Begin from the Israeli side and Sadat, Menachem Begin, a very hardliner. Sadat is asking Begin, Mr. Prime Minister, is there anything we can do to help the Palestinians? And Menachem Begin says, Israel will consider an autonomy to the Palestinian people. The first people that recognized the Palestinians as a nation with a right to an autonomy were not the Arab countries, it was the state of Israel. And while negotiating, Begin is telling Sadat, Mr. President, you had Gaza in your hands until 1967. We're going to pull out from Gaza and Sinai. It will be yours, land for peace. Please take Gaza back with you. Sadat smiled bitterly and said, oh no, you stick with Gaza. We don't want Gaza back. Gaza is a major problem. You deal with it. We had enough with Palestinians and Gaza. So we're going to make this peace. Gaza is a place that Egypt doesn't want. So the Egyptians don't really want that. Israel is willing to negotiate. That will be the beginning of the understanding something could be done. There was a piece of land that nobody wants with people over there. Maybe we can create some kind of a Palestinian entity in order to bring this conflict to an end. I'm stopping here because the clock is ticking. If you be back in 10 minutes, we can continue and bring that to conclusion by 8 o'clock. I made a promise. I want to keep my promise. Thank you. We'll start in 10 minutes. Come on, guys, go do something. Okay, folks, 10 minutes are over. As we say in the tourist industry in Israel, we love you, but we leave you. We speak about the bus, obviously. Yeah, we are walking. That's another. So we are at the point that Egypt refuses to take Gaza with it. Meanwhile, in southern Lebanon, northern Israel, the Israeli army is pulling into Lebanon to destroy the infrastructure built by the PLO. It's a good job, takes a while because Syria is also deployed in Lebanon, so there was a war against the Syrian troops as well. Beirut was conquered, taken. Arafat is getting on a boat with his men and goes to Tunisia. So from 1982, the end of August, no Palestinian militias on the borders of the state of Israel. But we did the big mistake in the process to undermine the position of the PLO as a growing power in Lebanon. We helped creating a militia called Hezbollah, I'm sure that you heard the name, which is the biggest proxy of Iran today. At the same time, revolution in Iran, they want to export the revolution, Shia Islam, to every country in the region. The PLO is out. Israel wants to make sure they're not coming back, so we are supporting the local Shia group, which will be embraced by Iran, one of the main problems we are dealing with as we speak in Lebanon. So very stupidly, we helped creating Hezbollah. We will also help to create Hamas, believe it or not. So our politics are kind of different. We don't really fully understand the motivation of the others. Now we do. For many years, we thought that it's all a Western mindset. Logic will prevail. We'll find a solution. We have no illusions anymore today. But since 1982, there are no Palestinians. I'm running this one through with your permission. 5 years later, the first uprising of the Palestinians, it started in Gaza, and Israel is confronting a new situation. We speak about a conflict that there was an Israeli army on one side, and basically kids and youngsters and youth on the other side. And some of you may remember this very unpleasant pictures, I'll be quick to admit. You see those kids standing with a Molotov cocktail, throwing at a tank, and kids are being killed. The Israeli society was confronted with a situation that we were not familiar with. How do you occupy a place? How do you control civilians? And how do you fight resistance of civilians? Armies usually don't know how to do that. Police forces do. But since we speak about the territories, Israeli police has no authority over there. It's not Israeli sovereign territory. Israel did not annex, not Gaza and not the West Bank, and for that reason the police is not operating there, just the army. It brought an issue to the table that divided us Israelis almost 50-50. How do we see the future of the territories? Until October 7th, we are divided, and many people in the country, about 50%, we have the opinion that we should find a way to resolve the Palestinian problem. These people deserve a country. We are going to compromise our land. We are going to do whatever possible to reach some kind of a solution. The other 50% will say, no, the land is ours. It's given to us by God. We don't have the freedom to negotiate that because it wasn't our choice. It was a biblical promise. So that will be the main issue on the table. What shall Israel do vis-a-vis the Palestinians? And the turning point that changed the mindset in the country for some people was that intifada, those very unpleasant pictures. We did not know how to respond. Usually the army opens fire. Civilians were killed. Yes, I'll be quick to admit it was not a pleasant thing to see. But it brought us to the conclusion that something has to be done. We need to try to find a solution. We don't want to kill civilians. We're willing to listen to their demands. We'll find a way. Not understanding that the idea was not a Palestinian state. It was you, the Jews, will never have your state, as I said, an observation made by the British some decades earlier. And meanwhile, something else happens, which is quite shocking. In 1988, the King of Jordan, King Hussein, makes a statement. What my grandfather did, he said, King Abdullah, annexing the West Bank to Jordan was a big mistake. I relinquish any demands to the West Bank. Anybody can have it, and the people that live on that land. So now we have two pieces of property. Gaza that Egypt didn't want. The West Bank now relinquished by the Jordanians. Maybe there's enough space over there and enough people for Israel to start considering to talk with somebody among the Palestinians about a solution. But who represents the Palestinians? Arafat is in Tunisia. They did not have any elections yet, and anybody that we try to encourage to rise to be a local leader that represents the people is murdered by the PLO. So who will be the partners for negotiations? Basically, nobody. Meanwhile, another group is being created in Gaza. It will be called Hamas. Israel was helping to create Hamas. I know it sounds crazy, because our policy was always divide and conquer. We want to make sure that the PLO is not strong enough, and that's why we need to create an opposition. We'll work with Hamas. And Hamas represented itself at first as a movement that specializes in social issues, in financial issues. They're going to take care about the needs of the Palestinian population, side by side with UNRWA. They'll educate the kids in a peaceful way. That was the idea. They're going to create jobs. They have a lot of support around the world. Israel was willing to support Hamas, not because we like them so much. We wanted to create a rift. We wanted to make sure that the Palestinians are not united and the PLO is not strong enough to take over the whole thing. Maybe clever politics happened to be quite a devastating one. Now we know. Back then, we did not have the experience. Please read the agenda of Hamas. Their words, not mine. What Israel did basically is creating a group which is motivated not by the national aspiration, but by religion. We're going back to the Muslim agenda. The idea was with the PLO, as much as they're bad for us, it's politics. We'll find a solution. With Hamas, it's a dead end. You read the charter of Hamas, I'll show you some of it. They don't speak about the Palestinian state. They speak about world jihad. And these are the freedom fighters of the Palestinians that they betrayed because they hide in the tunnels where people in Gaza are getting killed. Who are you protecting when you hide in a tunnel? Hamas speaks in behalf of Islam, not in behalf of a Palestinian state or the Palestinian people. Please read the charter. November 1988, that was a statement. We speak about a group which is very brutal. We speak about a group which is ruling with an iron fist. If you disagree to their agenda, public executions in the streets, that's our neighbor on the southern side of the country. Since 1988, they're getting stronger and stronger until they're going to control and win the whole Gaza Strip. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. So Hamas is a new player in the area, a player that Israel considers an asset. We want them to grow. We want to create an opposition to the PLO. We did not anticipate what will happen later when most of the Palestinian people, but they had a chance to vote, will vote for Hamas. Now, when you know the agenda of Hamas, and you wonder why people will vote for that, why people vote for something that guarantees poverty and guarantees zero human rights and guarantees violence and guarantees radicalism, why would anybody vote for such an agenda? Willingly, knowingly, and freely. Because we are willing to suffer as long as you make you suffer. How do you deal with this kind of a mindset? Please read Article 13 in the Charter of Hamas. And read Article 28, just a selection of some of the articles. That's the mindset. That's the spirit. And when Hamas will win Gaza, that will be the constitution in a way. Not Palestine, not Palestinians, global jihad, because Hamas is affiliated to the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas is Muslim Brotherhood Palestine. And if you read the book of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, his name was Muhammad al-Banna from 1932-33, Hitler's Mein Kampf in Arabic. Very same idea. It's out there, it's a stated agenda, nobody hides it. We just pretend that we can't read Arabic because it's unpleasant to read and requires action. So now we have a new situation. The West Bank, Jordan doesn't want, Gaza, Egypt doesn't want, Israel is initiating a round of peace talks. It was always Israel who initiated peace talks with the Palestinians. We are reaching out to Arafat and his companions in Tunisia. Keep in mind, the man is irrelevant. He lives far away. He has his messengers to murder every local Palestinian who is willing to talk to Israel. But the Palestinian militias are not on Israel's borders. We make him an offer. We brought him back to life almost because he was not relevant for years. Israelis and Palestinians start negotiating secretly in Oslo, the Norwegian capital. They produce an agreement, basically, that will be signed in the White House. You see President Clinton is very happy, and you see the date, September 13. And here is the exchange of letters between Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin, our prime minister. That's the idea. We recognize each other. Israel made the mistake to recognize the PLO as the legitimate representatives of the Palestinians. They were never elected by anybody. It was a self-appointed body of people. Most people did not support the PLO. We gave them power they did not deserve, and the locals didn't want. Because for the local Palestinians in Gaza, Arafat and his companions live like kings in great hotels in Tunisia, just like today Hamas leaders in Qatar. They are not really with us. They don't speak the same language. They're not in the area for such a long time. They're not our representatives. Israel did that. We basically are telling the Palestinians who represents you. And the big mistake was that Hamas said later, I'm not part of the PLO. And therefore, all the agreements you have with the PLO, we are not included. That will be our legitimate position. We are not violating the agreement. We are not included. We are not the PLO. So Israel officially recognizes the PLO as leaders. The leaders are exchanging letters, and they address the people with much opposition on the Israeli side, on the Palestinian side. Rabin is addressing the people on TV, and he says very clearly, a painful decision. We don't want to occupy people. We want to find a solution for the best interest of everybody. We're going to give it a shot. Arafat addressed his people in Arabic, always in Arabic. And we heard that. We said, you know what? He has his own opposition. That's how he's going to deal with things. It's fine. We are partners. We made a deal. Articles basically speak about the following. Very simple formula. It's going to be land for peace. How much land Israel is going to give to the Palestinians, it doesn't say clearly. The plan was we are going to divide the West Bank and Gaza to 3 sections. We'll give you full sovereignty on Section A. I'll show you the map, very confusing. And if you can deliver, live in peace, develop your society, surrender the weapons, stop instigation against Israel in the school system, you'll get more land. If you can deliver, stop terror. The map is too confusing even to start talking about it. That's the idea. We're going to pull out from some territories, going to pull out from Gaza, we're going to pull out from Hebron and Bethlehem and Shechem and Jenin, all those places, they will be Area A, which means under Palestinians' full control, and we'll see what's going on. Guess what happened? Wasn't really working. We started implementing the agreement by creating the Palestinian Authority. Israel did that. Israel was appointing Arafat to be the head of it. How humiliating. What will be written in history books that speak about Palestinian history? The Jews gave us the country? Arafat was chosen by the Jews to be a leader? We have to fight for it. We need to kill people for it. And sure enough, a motivation that we did not understand. But it was very much part of the agenda, and violence started almost immediately. So now there is a Palestinian autonomy, and Israel is pulling out from territories as we promised. We are leaving the area of Jericho first, and then we are going to pull out from more territory, give it over, and we are careful to see how the Palestinians are going to deal with those businesses. Is it going to be a success? Unfortunately, not that it wasn't working, it wasn't meant to work from the very beginning. Arafat said, we'll take whatever they offer, we won't stop, until the whole country is ours and the Jews are in the ocean. And we said, just a minute now, we made a deal. So, oh, that's for the opposition. I'm still your friend. But I have to talk to all those who are against me. And no, that was the plan from the very beginning. Back to the map. And again, this confusing one. Well, we pulled out from Jericho and gave Jericho to the Palestinians. And within days, we witnessed a wave of terror because now those terrorists had a safe place to go to. If you place a bomb in the cafeteria in the Hebrew University's campus in Jerusalem, you detonate it for about 30 minutes later. By the time the bomb detonates, you're in your home in Jericho sipping coffee while people are being killed in the cafeteria. We said, just a minute now, Mr. Arafat, we made a deal here. We don't want to violate your sovereignty. We won't go into Jericho. It's your territory. You go and arrest the man. And the answer was, I cannot. It will start a civil war. I don't have enough weapons. I need some help. You know what we did? We helped. We gave them weapons that were used against us. But we still thought we are partners and that will work. It wasn't working to begin with. And then we had the Western Wall riots. Some of you may remember hundreds of people are killed and murdered in acts of terror in Israel. And Israel calls them victims of peace and holding on because it has to work. It will take some time, but we're going to give it a chance. It wasn't meant to work, and it wasn't working. I do want to show you a short video, and I erased the unpleasant part. You know what happens when somebody carries a bomb in his pocket, goes into a bus, and detonates himself in the bus? That's from 1994 in Jerusalem. Again, I cut out the unpleasant part to see how a bus looks like. You see a lot of people dressed in ultra-Orthodox outfit. It is our understanding of Jews that every drop of blood has to be collected, every piece of skin, every piece of flesh to be buried.
תמונת המצב בדקות ההן עדיין איננה ברורה. יש חשש למטענים נוספים. המשטרה נאלצת להרחיק סקרנים רבים שמתאספים באזור. במקביל, מתחילות פעולות החילוץ.
While we are talking peace, remember? We are neighbors, we signed an agreement. That's what happens in our streets. We understood that something's wrong here. It's not here. And once again, Israel initiated the peace plan. Since we thought that what the Palestinians want basically is Israel pulling back to the borders of the 4th of June, which means the West Bank in its entirety, Gaza Strip, will be the future Palestinian state. So we made a plan basically offering to them almost everything they wanted. Ehud Barak, a new prime minister, is meeting Arafat in Camp David and presents a plan. Once again, a very generous one. Israel offers 93% of the land for a Palestinian state, for the first time state, not autonomy. The missing 7% will be compensated with land around the area of Gaza. A Jewish prime minister, for goodness sake, is willing to consider that Palestinians will have control over East Jerusalem, including Temple Mount, including Western Wall. We really wanted to solve the problem. Arafat left the room even without presenting a counteroffer. President Clinton was interviewed only about 3 or 4 weeks ago and speaking about his memoirs. And he said, I knew that they were bluffing. As I understand it, Arafat is not interested to listen to the offer. He wasn't even listening. He said, I knew immediately. The purpose is not of a state. The purpose is to destroy the Jewish state. So it took some time to understand. Took us some time to understand. And then Arafat is coming back to the territories. He's based in Ramallah in the West Bank. And another intifada begins. And here is the message he delivers to his people. You will never hear such a message delivered by an Israeli leader. Never, ever. And we're facing a new situation, another intifada. President Bush wants to get involved because the U.S. understands this mess has to be resolved once and for all, and presents a plan. It will be called the Roadmap for Peace in the Middle East. And he says that America's dream was always to see a two-state solution. With all due respect, it was not the plan of America until President Bush stated it so clearly in June of 2002. America's position was always, you find a way. You make an agreement, we'll support every decision you're getting. Now, basically, we want to see a two-state solution. Israel said, we'll take it. The Palestinians said, we're not going to take it because the plan had a precondition. Israel is only obligated to pull out from territory if the Palestinians show 100% of an effort to fight their own terror militias. They couldn't, they didn't want to, and therefore the pressure is not on Israel. We accepted a plan that led nowhere, basically, but that's now the plan on the table. And since the idea was that we are going to pull out from the land and give it over to the Palestinians, once again, we started building fences. I told you yesterday, you build a fence, that's a bad sign. Only the weak party builds a fence. Keep in mind, it sounds reasonable that you're going to build a wall to protect yourself. It delivers a message to the other side. Only the weak party builds fences and walls. If you're strong enough, they wouldn't dare to attack you because they will afraid your retaliation. If you build a fence, you're changing your mindset from offensive to defensive in the Middle East. That's critical. But we start building a fence, and we thought it's going to help us. Wasn't really helping. Please read the announcement or the observations of some of the Arab leaders about how they see the situation. Okay? Mahmoud Abbas replacing Yasser Arafat, who died in November 2005. Now there was a new president of the Palestinians. And of course, the Sultan, President Erdogan of Turkey, loud and clear, that's what we are dealing with. So Israel is initiating one peace talk after the other, ignoring what's on the table all the time. But what was the alternative? And therefore, it is always our initiative, but you also need to understand the following dilemma. Israel could, if you want to, conquer Gaza, conquer the West Bank, annex it officially to create a greater Israel. We can do that. The world will be upset. We don't care if the world likes us or hates us. It's a possibility. However, if we want to do that and create a greater Israel and keep our democratic system and nature, we have to give the people who live there civil rights, including the right to vote. If we do that, we'll be outnumbered overnight. That's the end of the state of Israel. Therefore, the other option is to have a smaller Israel with a solid Jewish majority. Giving up land, yes, I don't like it, many people don't like it. But if you want to keep our democratic nature, and we don't want to be an apartheid state, then a smaller Israel with solid Jewish majority in it is the only option. If you want to create a greater Israel, if you want to be a democracy, you lose your country without firing a single bullet, simply by the demographics. Because 2.5 million Arabs in Israel, 2.5 million in Gaza, 2.2 in the West Bank makes a majority if Israel decides to annex the territories. That's our dilemma until this very day. Do we want to be a smaller country with a solid majority of Jews and a democracy? Or do we want to have a greater Israel, losing our majority and become an apartheid state? I think that 90% of people in my country will go for the smaller Israel and democracy. Not everybody. Some people say, yeah, let's be an apartheid state, the land is ours, we don't care about the rights of the Arabs. It's a small minority. We don't have a single party in Israel who is supporting that kind of line. And we have radicals and we have idiots, just like you do. Nobody will have that specific agenda, all right, that we want to be an apartheid state. But it may lead to that if we decide to annex the area. Ariel Sharon comes to the scene, another hardliner, and he decides he's going to initiate another move. Israel is always initiating peace talks and withdrawals. Sharon says, listen, we are going to leave Gaza. Gaza is a problem. We have to protect the people in Gaza. It's too much, too many resources. We're going to pull out our own neighborhoods and communities, settlements in Gaza, relocating 8,000 Israelis, utterly destroy 21 communities that we built in Gaza. Israel is out of Gaza. The world is insisting that Israel will give up. We have to appease the Arabs. We're going to leave. Let's see what will happen. What do you think happened? 2005, Israel officially is leaving the Gaza Strip. I'm running all this one through with your permission. And from the September 11th of 2005, not a single Israeli in Gaza. We left the area. We closed the gates behind us. We are no longer there. Everybody says Israel had the blockade around Gaza. Gaza was a huge concentration camp. Just a minute. Gaza has a border with Egypt. Why the world expects Israel to supply our bitter enemy with everything that they need? And we do. Food and fuel and medical care. They can come to be treated in our hospitals. Why aren't the Egyptians doing anything to support their brothers and sisters? Why the pressure is not on Egypt? Can't even answer the question. But the whole world pointed at Israel. There was a blockade. No blockade. Gaza has a border with Egypt. Everybody conveniently ignores it. But Israel is out of Gaza. And the question is, what will happen next? Well, elections. For the first time ever in an Arab country, elections. Ms. Condoleezza Rice, Secretary of State, was in the opinion it's an opportunity to show the world that Arabs can live in democracy. Because until there was like an oxymoron, Arabs and democracy. No, they could. We're going to prove that. We'll let the Palestinians vote, free elections. The whole world will send spectators. They're going to monitor. They are as kosher as possible, as legit as possible. We'll see the outcomes. Israel warned her, if there will be elections, Hamas will win. And she said, nevertheless, guess what happened in the elections? Elections in January of 2006, Hamas wins 75% of the vote. Now, if you're voting for Hamas after you read their charter, don't complain later on that you don't enjoy civil rights and life is not that great. People voted for Hamas out of their free will. Would you vote for somebody that guarantees misery and poverty? Why would they do that? Well, because Hamas fights for Islam, and that's the agenda, and not Palestinian state. We speak about Muslim domination. And since the whole world said, well, you're strangling Gaza, the poor Gazans are starving. People starving Gaza, sounds familiar? We said, well, no. Let's bring over some journalists from Egypt so they can give an honest review about what happens in Gaza. And you read the reports. They were shocked to see the prosperity. They were shocked to see the money, the new hotels, holiday villages. The whole world was in the opinion that people are starving in Gaza. Yes, you've been lied to, even for the last 2 years. So these people came and wrote their report, obviously. One of them could not go back to Egypt because you are collaborating with the enemy. You gave a false report. But these are honest reports of eyewitnesses that were not pro-Israel. Visited Gaza. Look at this report, 2024. Speaks about how great Gaza is. The world was calling Gaza an open-air prison, a large concentration camp. Really? Look how nice it was. Meanwhile, all the money given to Hamas in Gaza was used for this. Question is, how do you have enough money to invest in terror and also to maintain daily life in the Gaza Strip? Well, we helped. Israel issued about 100,000 working certificates for Palestinians to come to work in Israel. Many from the West Bank, also from Gaza. The money they were making was 10 times more than salaries in Gaza. Gaza has a rate of unemployment more than 60% if it wasn't Israel opening the borders to take people in to work and bring money back to Gaza. So the money these people made in Israel basically sustained the whole thing. The money that the world gave to Gaza to support the people was used for that. So these people that came to work in Israel will lead the attack on October 7th, 2023. They knew the names, they knew the places, they knew the people. We gave them life. And that's how they rewarded us with leading the attack of 2023. Let me show you something that will shock you, but it's important to see. Education in Gaza. Graduation of elementary school. We speak about kids about 6 or 7 years old and look at what happens in school. He's imitating an Israeli, of course, and here is a settler, can you tell, wearing the talit, approaching an Arab. These are 7 years old. Kicks him, of course, humiliates him, and now the heroes of Islam are coming to revenge. That's something a play that you put off for kids when they graduate elementary school, kindergarten.
ואם טעיתם, ברפרטואר המגוון במסיבת הסיום לא תמצאו שירי ילדות קלאסיים.
The parents are so happy. I'll serve you the music in the background and of course the lyrics because they're not very pleasant. They're going to go to the Zionist home, we'll find them, we'll cut their throats. 7-year-old. And if you're not dead yet, I'm going to make sure they're going to tear you to pieces.
תמצאו כאן ריקודי סכינים, פעלולי
Nice way to
אקדחים
educate your
ורובים,
kids.
פזץ
This
טוב
was taken about
ותרגילים
15 years
צבאיים.
ago. These are the terrorists of today.
גן ילדים
These are the
שמפעיל
people
הג'יהאד
that are going to
האסלאמי
take out
בשכונת
one by
זייתון
one. We'll
בעזה,
find all of them.
ההורים בקהל
But just
מוקסמים,
to try to
וקולו של
understand,
פתחי
or to
שקקי,
try to
מייסד
explain
הג'יהאד
what
שחוסל
is the
במלטה
spirit
לפני 20 שנה,
and what is the
עדיין
tone
מהדהד
when
אל
we speak
הדור
about Gaza.
החדש.
You see in a minute they're attacking an Israeli stronghold and a tank. The leader of Islamic Jihad is
זו לא הפעם הראשונה שהגן הזה יודע מופעי הסתה מושקעים. לפני שנתיים הם הציגו את יחידת ההסוואה של הג'יהאד ועשו מחווה לצוללני הקומנדו הימי. אשתקד הניחו הילדים ממסיבת הסיום מטען לדגם של טנק.
Well, Israel had a certain policy represented by a prime minister for the last 17 years. We want to make sure that Hamas is getting stronger. Sounds crazy, I know. Because as long as Hamas is stronger, the PLO will never be the leaders. And since the Palestinians are divided, Israel does not have to negotiate because who represent the Palestinians? And as long as they don't have one leadership that we can negotiate with that can deliver, we are not talking to anybody. And we created that situation that will not be united, so the pressure will not be on Israel. We helped Hamas with a lot of money. The money came from Qatar without permission. I know it sounds crazy, $30 million every month. And Qatar was more than happy to provide the money. The money went to Hamas officials in Gaza, not for food and not for education. We paid terror in Gaza because we thought it will give us some more quiet. Because we are going to create a situation that life in Gaza is so good, they will never attack us. They have so much to lose. Life was decent. If they'll dare to attack us, in our retaliation, we'll destroy everything. They are having a lot to lose. Why would they attack Israel? Because keep in mind, all of our attention goes to Iran. Resources, attention, intelligence goes to the only existential threat that we have, and that's not Hamas, that's Iran. Hamas, we can contain the situation over there. They may want to, but they will never dare, and they're not capable. We knew the plans. We did not believe they will dare to lead such an attack as they did. They have deceived us. They did a great job in deceiving us, taking full advantage of our naivete, and we were punished for that. That was the main risk, that they are going to dig tunnels into Israel, and we'll find them in our front yard, surprisingly. So what do? We build a fence. Aren't you impressed? Look at that. State of the art. Sensors, cameras, impossible to break through. A steel wall, 100 feet down. You cannot dig a tunnel through that, and under that will be water table. You cannot do that. We were protected. Nothing can happen. What if you drive a bulldozer, right, and you try to tear this down? That will collapse. So we thought that by building and by using a state-of-the-art of a borderline, it's going to help us. We were wrong. It did not help us in any way. Hamas was building its forces, was building its power, Islamic Jihad as well. We had rounds of wars and battles, and we attacked, and they attacked us all the time. They planned for the big move, and this big move took place on October 7th, and they did it very cleverly. Here is a situation for you. They didn't know that behind the fence into the Gaza area, about 200 yards, that's a killing zone, no man's land. Nobody dares to cross because you'll be in danger. And one day a kid is walking by, plays with a ball, and kicks the ball, and the ball falls behind the line. And 200 Israeli snipers are looking at the kid. What do you do? I'm asking you. Technically, you should open fire. You should kill the young boy. Will you do that? No. The following day, 10 kids show up. Each one has a ball. They kick the ball, get a little closer now to the fence, and they just go to retrieve the balls. What will you do? You understand the problem. You do not open fire to kill children. A month later, a shepherd shows up with 500 sheep. And the sheep are heavy wool. Hidden in that wool are small boxes of explosions of TNT, of bombs. And the sheep going down to the fence. And the poor shepherd just going to find the sheep. And as you reach to the sheep, you take out a little bomb and magnetically attach it to the fence. We can't see that. We can't see what happens on the other side. And that went on for months. And then they show up with tires set on fire, roll them down, and behind a smoke screen, they did a great job to deceive us. And that led to October 7th, and again, once again, all of our attention is still given to Syria, to Lebanon, and to Iran as well. We simply did not pay enough attention to what happens in Gaza because these people have so much to lose. They are making money, they come to work, they are building, they are prospering. Why would they jeopardize all of that? We know the answer today, but even 3 years ago, we did not understand. Why will you risk all of that? Well, because we do what we can to destroy you. We don't care about what happens to us, we want to destroy you. Please read the statements made recently by Hamas leaders in the Gaza area, especially the one at the bottom. See the kids. That's how they dedicate their kids for. All right? The kids should be the first line of defense. And this is not a nobody. We speak about the head of Hamas that we took out in Iran over a year ago, but that was the idea. It was October 7th, the last day of a holiday in Israel, the Feast of Tabernacles, 6/29. I'm walking the dog. It's my job usually in the morning. My phone rings. My daughter, who is working for Israeli TV, is on the line. And I'm asking her, why are you up so early? And she says, where are you, Dad? I said, walking the dog. I said, well, go back home, take shelter, 3,000 rockets are on the way to your direction. That's how I knew that something happened. In a very short time, from 111 places, Hamas murderers, I would say, the Nuhba elite forces, were breaking through the fence. Few Israeli troops that tried to stop them with no success, and they made their way straight into the communities in the Gaza envelope area. And if that was not enough, a music festival that was attacked also, but 4,000 people came just to enjoy life and to celebrate. We speak about raping people, murdering people in their homes, and kidnapping 251 men, women, children as hostages to the Gaza area. That's how the whole thing started. We did not believe that they will dare. We knew what the plans are, but they did. And we were taken by surprise. Our retaliation was harsh, not over yet, but that was a turning point in the mindset of many Israelis, especially those who thought that maybe there is a way to reason. Maybe if we give them just a little more land, there will be a peace and there will be some kind of peace. Not going to happen. Finally, we understand. It was never about a Palestinian state. And don't listen to me, listen to them. Whatever happens, there'll be no Jews in the Middle East. That's the plan, basically. And therefore, it creates a new mindset among Israelis. We no longer think about negotiations. We no longer think there is a partner to deal with on the other side. Unfortunately, this war is going to go on and on and on. I'm not happy to deliver that kind of message, but we need to be realistic about the situation here. Yes, some situations don't have a solution. And I have to say that right now we don't have any solution vis-a-vis the Palestinians, because even now, after 2.5 to 3 years that Gaza is in a terrible condition, when you take a poll among the Palestinians, most of them still voting for Hamas. How do you to understand it, huh? Doesn't make sense, huh? It just doesn't make sense. If that's what they want, everlasting war, so be it. We are prepared, we are ready. Let me show you some images from Kibbutz Be'eri, the one that was hit the hardest in the attack. Can we have some volume, please? Some images from Kibbutz Be'eri, the kibbutz that was hit the hardest from the murderous attack of Hamas. Until 2 weeks ago, happy families used to live here. This was a house with children playing out on the green grass. It was beautiful, it was a little paradise, and that's what was left of it now. Just one community out of 32 that were attacked and almost completely destroyed. The shocking part was that when we had the first wave of terrorists coming through, these were the professional Hamas, whatever, special forces, followed by Hamas, followed by Gazans, simple people that had there is an opportunity. The border is breached, and we can go and take whatever we want from the Israeli side. So you take a kitchen knife, and you cross over to the other side, and you start killing people that you meet along the way, kids and women and children, because, hey, that's what we do, right? And then you steal something from the house, and you take a rug with you, a computer, a laptop, a toaster oven. Amazing, we find those as we go through house over house in Gaza. You find stuff that was stolen from Israeli homes on the other side as we make progress deeper into Gaza. It's absolutely shocking. I've got to say, there are innocent people in Gaza and good people in Gaza. Maybe there are. I didn't find them yet. You tell me, who are the good people in Gaza when thousands of people are beating and spitting the naked, the dead body of an Israeli girl in the streets of Gaza? Everybody's happy, cheering, handing out candies. Who are the good people in Gaza? We don't see them, we don't hear them, good to my criteria. We are dealing with something which is not going to end in a peaceful way, unfortunately. And again, I just want to run through. The damage in Gaza is vast. In about 70% of the Gazan home, that's Israeli sources, all right? Israeli sources. Something was found to connect them with the terror infrastructure. You go into a kid's bedroom, and under the bed, there was a shaft that goes down to a bunker. You go into those houses, you see weapons, you see mortar, bombs all around the area. Are these legitimate targets? I'm asking you. You find a house which is fully equipped with terror. Is this a legitimate target? Your troops are walking along the street, somebody fires from a mosque. Is a mosque a legitimate target? You bury your explosives under the asphalt and then you pave the road. And as an Israeli tank goes by, you blow it up, which is a legitimate metaphor, but you cause the destruction in Gaza to the same extent that we do. All the houses are booby-trapped. And sometimes we know that because of the Pakistani drones that we fly inside. If the house is ready to be booby-trapped, is that a legitimate move to blow the house? I'm asking you. 70% of the houses in Gaza were somehow connected to terror infrastructure. Don't speak about casualties. Once again, because the time is short, I'll be more than happy to engage in a conversation. I just want to show you, no time for this one either, just a report given by the UN. That's not me, that's a UN, speaking about the Gazans are starving to death. By the way, they had a marathon in Gaza about a week ago. How do you run a marathon when you starve to death? 20,000 people showed up. Just run a marathon. Can you do that when you're not fed? Let me say it loud and clear. There is no shortage of food in Gaza. There are hungry people in Gaza, yes, because they don't have access to the warehouses of Hamas and UNRWA. The world believes that in order to live and just sustain your life, you need to have 2,700 calories a day. They did the math. Everybody in Gaza, based on now, has more than 6,000 calories a day. That's a decent way of life. People should be well fed. Where is the food? Because the food goes in. Look at the bottom line over there. That's UNRWA, not me. 94% of the trucks that went into Gaza were stolen by Hamas. So where is the food? The hungry people in Gaza, there was no starvation in Gaza. But nobody should point a finger at Israel, at least not anymore. Plenty of food. The question is how to use that. Food is power. And as long as you control the food, you control the Gaza Strip. And unfortunately, that's the place that we are in right now. Well, just to show you the last one with your permission, that's the current situation. You do see that Gaza, what was left of it, is cut off from Egypt, very important. So the Egyptians can no longer smuggle under the fence and the tunnels all the ammunitions and the rockets, etc. Gaza is isolated. They were supposed to be disarming about 4 months ago. They signed an agreement. Didn't happen. Somebody has to go inside to disarm Hamas. Who will do that? We don't want people to die for us. We don't want troops from America, Indonesia, Britain, Canada, Alaska. We know how to take care of our business, and we'll have to. We will not live our lives having a neighbor like Hamas, which means that sooner or later, we should go inside and we should take every single AK-47, destroy every factory that manufactures rockets. Hamas will cease to exist, at least as a potential threat to the state of Israel. Once again, I thank you for coming. I'm sorry that the message wasn't that pleasant, but we need to bring that to conclusion. Anyone has questions, I'll be here for a few more minutes. Thank you.
Well, it's kind of it's a little more complicated, isn't it? You watch the news, and I watch the news. I realize I don't see truth there. I watch Tucker Carlson, and I realize that joker is lying. He ain't telling us the truth, and it's absolutely amazing to me. So it is. I'm so grateful that you came. Grateful for Ronny coming. And again, where you really begin to understand this is truth is when you go and you see the incredible prosperity and what a great blessing the country of Israel is, and what a great joy it is for Christians to be able to go. So when we pray for Israel. There's something powerful. When God says in Genesis 12, he will bless those who bless his people, he means it. And he will curse those who curse his people. And I'm a strong believer in that. This church is, and we are grateful for Ronny and Tally. Tally, thank you for being here. I'm going to lead us in a word of prayer, or close us out in a word of prayer. They'll be in the bag. If you'd like to get one of his books, they're great. I'll encourage you to do that, and hope you guys have a good night. Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for the information. God, we know this. I know that there is, humanly speaking, there is no solution to this problem. But Jesus, you are the solution. And Lord, we believe that there is a day when you are coming in truth and righteousness and in power. And God, you will set things straight. And we place our hope and our trust in Jesus. You are our hope. And we are grateful for that. It is dismal, Lord, without you. And we see that. We've seen that in the pictures. But Jesus, with you, there is hope and redemption. Thank you for that, Lord. And I pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.